You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready?
Welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. Today's guest is Debbie Bryan. Debbie Bryan is an advocate of resilience, international speaker, and award-winning coach. Overcoming life-altering injuries from a tragic car accident caused Debbie to emerge as a symbol of hope and determination. Debbie tells us about her tragic accident.
13 years ago, I had a car accident. My circumstances at the time were that I was a hairdresser in a five-star gym, so it was very active, and I wanted to buy a new car. So I went and bought what we call an old banger. I guess you guys call it a lemon or something. It's a real cheap runaround. I had issues of having a company car, so stupid idea. Anyway, went and got the car. Driving home, I was driving the banger, and my husband was driving a different car. And I just came onto a dual carriageway, and all the power went out of my car. Literally all the power, all the lights went out. I had nothing, my foot to the ground. And I'm on a two-lane road, and I'm obviously in the lane furthest away. So I managed to drift that over to the side of the road, called my husband and said, maybe we've run out of petrol. I don't know. We've driven the car 40 miles. It's fine. And he said, okay, I'll go and get some petrol. So I was waiting in the car, very safe, very close to the edge of the road, but it was safe. It was a very, very busy road. And a couple of minutes later, 10 minutes later, he popped up as I jumped out of the car to go to the petrol cap to undo the petrol cap, which, to be honest, I probably didn't even know. I just bought the damn car, right? What I was thinking. And as I looked at his car, a car just drove straight into the back of him, straight into the back of the BMW he was driving, and it just pushed it forward. So I remember thinking, okay, he looks okay, it's just shunted the car forward. But then the car didn't stop. It didn't stop it. I didn't realize it had lost a wheel. So I'm stood on the side of the road, and this car's now coming straight at me where I'm stood, and I've got nowhere to go. I've got a really busy two-lane road this side. It's January, it's pretty swampy that side, and I think that's where the car's going. And I remember standing there thinking, I'm going to die, and this is going to hurt. And just for a few seconds, I just kind of accepted it. And then I thought, no, it's not happening. I'm not going. I'm not ready to leave my children. I'm not ready to leave my boys. They're not ready for me to go. It's not happening. And I had this whole dialogue in my head of like, it's not going. And I randomly took these two steps, and those two steps saved my life. So I still did get hit by the car, but the car actually hit my car where I was stood. So by the petrol cap is where it hit my car, hard enough to knock the car over two lanes of traffic and into the front barrier, but it also hit my leg. And so I was very much like, okay, that didn't hurt as much as I thought. I might be all right. So I was still stood up, but I felt like I was standing on ice. It was just like this slippy leg. And then as the car went past, because it was up on its side, and as it went past, it pushed my shoulder, sent me spinning. And next thing I know, I'm on all fours. And I realized I could feel parts of the car. When I look up, I'm in the lane of the traffic. And so I'm like, bugger, now I'm going to have to save my life again. So I then had to crawl across the road on all fours to get to the side of the road. And there was no blood. It was really clean. There was no blood, no accident. And I just knew I couldn't stand on my leg. I wasn't in pain. I broke a little bit of a nail, tiny little cut. And my husband said, stand up. And I said, I just can't stand up. So I thought it was just bruised. I thought it was fine, and it was bruised. Until I got to the hospital, and I got to the hospital, I still thought it was just bruised, and my kids were like, it's definitely broken, it's huge at this stage. And it turned out that it was very, very broken.
Debbie Bryan shares how she overcame this life-changing incident.
Wow, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I should have been dead. I was the luckiest person in the world. So they're pushing me around the hospital and saying, poor you, and I'm like, don't pour me. I should be in the morgue. I'm here. I'm the luckiest person in the world. I was euphoric. I was literally euphoric with this book. I don't know. It was a meds, but I was euphoric because as far as I was concerned, I was going to die. And so I'd accepted that I was going to die, and then I didn't die. So door number A was really rubbish, and door number B was actually much better than door number A. So, I was really happy. So that kind of happened. And then they said to me they're going to operate on the leg, and I had no real understanding of a broken leg. I genuinely thought 6 weeks in a cast. Everyone writes rude jokes on it. And then you go back to your normal life. I had no idea. And I think that was a good thing for me, that I had no idea, because I genuinely didn't know. And so when they started to come to me and say, right, okay, we can operate on it, but you're not going to be able to use your leg. You're going to lose the use of that leg. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, no, that can't happen. I've got hairdressers. I'm in a gym. I've got 3 children. I need to be able to use my leg. And to my surprise, the surgeons just walked away and then came back in the afternoon and said, right, we've had another look and we think we can do this. And I'm like, okay, so I'll be able to use my leg. I'll be able to stand up for 10 hours a day. And they were like, no, you're not going to be able to bend the leg. And I was like, no, you're not listening to me. This is what I need. And so then they came back a third time. Sorry. And I have no idea what they offered that time. I can't remember. Then the 4th time they came back, which was about 2 days later, and they said, right, got this plan now, really excited. You know, like if you ever watch things like Grays where they're so animated that they're going to operate, that's what these guys were. And they're like, what we're going to do is we're going to take some bone out of your hip, we're going to build a little shell, we're going to put the broken bits in and going to make that, and then we're going to dig really deep and get the good bone. And I was like, okay, I am not a boiled egg. Don't just do that. That's fine. And what they said is, you know, you'll have some degree of bend, you'll have some degree of normality, don't know how much bend, but, you know, it's going to be all okay. So I think that's great. That's what's going to happen. When I wake up, I've got 2 plates and 22 screws and have some of my hip bone missing and a cage on my leg. And so I was like, okay, that's not quite what I thought, but that's the severity of this bruised leg, was that was what it was. But I still was feeling very lucky, because I still was, look, I'm alive. And that's really the reality, is that I'm still here. I'm alive. I can fix this. I can do what they tell me to do. The physio tells me, the doctors tell me, they've operated and told me if I do everything that they say that I need to do, then I'll just get back to normal. And then I can just move on with my life. Terrified. Obviously, I've got a business, a hairdressing business, that I said to my manager, I was so deluded. I said to my manager, move my clients for 3 weeks. And she went, 3 weeks? And I was like, okay, make it 5. I didn't go back to the hairdressing for like 8 months. I didn't walk for 6 months. So that bit of bone that they took up my hip to support, to rebuild, I couldn't put any weight on that for 6 months. So I was very much a hairdresser with a broken leg. The physio I went through, I mean, my recovery from what I thought a broken leg was brutal. Absolutely brutal. It was painful. I cried through the physio. I couldn't get up the stairs. The first time I went to go up the stairs, I fell down the stairs. So I went on my bum for 6 months up the stairs, like literally shuffle. I went to Wembley, had tickets for Wembley, and had to have a big argument with them because they wanted me to do that in Wembley. And I managed to Google one of the directors and speak to one of the directors who changed it for me. But it was brutal. It was painful. But I just had in my head that if I just did what I had to do, I would get back to normal. And I was determined that that was what was going to happen. And then a year later, because it's a car accident, they send me to see some of the top surgeons to see, you know, what the likely prognosis is. And they then tell me I'm going to be in a wheelchair at 55 and actually that normal's not coming back. And so I was like, that's not going to happen either. That's not happening. That's not happening to me. And I was a bit like, oh, just had this whole fight to get to where I am for the last year, and now I've got to fight again. Now I have to have another argument and another fight, but that's what I did. I didn't change my life straight away. I changed it about 18 months later. I tried to do everything the same and just think that it would all just work out. But, you know, I would go into the salon and be back hairdressing at this stage. And I still had a metal brace on my leg that I had to wear every day. And my skin would swell over the straps. So when you took it off, it would literally just be like a mushroom. And I'd work until, say, 9 till 3 on a Saturday and then come home and crawl up the stairs to go to bed to be able to put my leg up so that swelling would come down. That was the reality of it. It wasn't quite so fun at that stage. But I still was determined that if I just did everything right, that it would work out all right. So when they said about the wheelchair, I was pretty shocked.
Due to the car accident Debbie endured, she had to change her profession. Debbie discusses how and why she became a coach.
Well, obviously, eventually I had to give in and not be a hairdresser. What the biggest lesson that I learned was that I had a huge ego at the time, and I believed that I was the only person who could do the people's hair. Okay. So I was like, these clients, I'll lose my business if I don't do these people's hair. Like, I don't know who I thought I was. Reality was, is they just moved to one of my other stylists and they were all perfectly happy and we never lost any clients. Well, the opportunity it gave me was to work on the business and not in the business. That's what made the massive difference. We only turned over about 75,000. It was a very small salon, only like 5 seats type thing, 75,000 a year. Within 2 years, I had a spa that was £1 million spa, had 10 treatment rooms, a photo studio, a jacuzzi, a plastic surgeon clinic, and we turned over 444,000 in 8 months. And that wouldn't have happened had I stood behind the chair. So that's more where I went into the coaching, because although we had good turnover and stuff there, it was a big building. It was a lot of hard work. I'd started to I'd ruined the cartilage in my other leg by that stage. I was spitting all the time, standing on there. So I started having cortisone injections and stuff. So it got to a point where I had to have another operation, and this building was so huge that I sold the business to somebody else, wanting to take some time off because I thought I can't cope with having the business and an operation again. And the reality is that a knee replacement is only 6 weeks. It's not a year or 18 months like I'd already gone. So I'm off and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And so then some friends wanted some help with some digital marketing, started doing some digital marketing, started helping people, went back to an old coach who I had worked with previously, and he invited me to come and teach social media at his events. And so that's where the coaching came from, really. I just took all that knowledge, all those transferable skills, and put them into something that wasn't so physical. That wasn't so much running around. It was actually, although when we were on the coaching and on the road and the road shows it was, but it was intermittent. I would say like the road shows were maybe 10 days of the month and the rest of the time could be done. And then the lockdown hit anyway, and so nobody went anywhere at that stage. And so then I became fully into coaching because I realized that people didn't understand who their customer was. So they were chucking money at social media and expecting these miracles, but it was so generic in who they were trying to chuck money at that it was like, let's just throw some mud at the wall and see what sticks. And if we're lucky, then we'll get a customer out of it. And in the early days of social media, that kind of worked, but it doesn't now. So that's what happened then, is I became more into who are you? Like, so I believe that if you have to educate a client about what you're selling, it's a really long sales process. So I'm very much about be visible, stop being the best kept secret in the room. If someone understands what you do before you talk to them, you're halfway there. If you have to educate somebody, I've done it with beauty treatments where I have to go, well, this is what it does. You've never heard of it because it's all brand new and it's all this. So then someone's going to go away and do some research and they're going to come back and then they might talk to you, see how much longer the sales process is. If you want to buy a car, you're like, okay, I already know what a car is, right? I already know what a car does. Now, which one do I want? Whereas if we brought out another mode of transport, you'd be like, I've never heard of this. So if a driverless car, you want to buy a driverless car, you'd go, I need to do some research because I don't understand it. I don't know what it does. Pros and cons. So the coaching is like double-edged. One of it is make people aware of what you do and understand who you are. And then the other is like, now I've just done a TED talk. People understand that I speak about speaking. I talk about visibility. I help them to get more visible so that they can get a TED talk. So that's nice and easy. I can just have a little X or a little red thing on me and they know what I'm doing. But I have, we've all had some times when we've been the best kept secret in the room, and that's not a great place to be.
Debbie Bryan is a former TEDx speaker. She shares how she became a speaker at a TEDx event.
I found out about a TED. It's quite funny, actually, because I've been given 4 or 5 different TEDs that were accepting applications. I have a mentor who is a 4 times TED talker. So he was like these ones, and I'm obviously in the UK. So it was like Montana, Arizona, Texas, Australia. Not a problem with the travel, to be honest. I will go to wherever needs to be. But the timescales were just wrong for me. But I'd committed myself to doing this TED talk. I told myself I'm going to do a TED. I had massive imposter syndrome when I first started speaking. I was very much like, who's going to listen to Debbie from Swindon? And that's how I felt was in the beginning. And then I did a little bit more and a little bit more. So I committed to this TED talk, and people were like, yeah, you're going to get a TED talk with that whole, God, she's mad type thing. So I turned down these ones that Corey had sent me. And then this one came that said Western New London. So I thought, you know what? You're never going to get a TED talk unless you fill in the flipping form. So I committed, did the form, and never thought I'd get anywhere, to be perfectly honest. I had made sure that I had all the social proof and the assets that I needed. I was on 50 podcasts last year, some mine, some other people's. Had a 4-page spread. I've been in Authority magazine. I've been on Medium. I was nominated for 4 awards, won some awards. So I had a lot of social proof when they were looking at me, and I fitted the theme, Rising Phoenix. When they looked, they had enough to see I wasn't the best kept secret anymore. So I put the submission in, and they then sent me an email saying, hey, we'd love to interview you. And then I thought, let's look up Western U and see where it is. And it turned out to be London, Ontario in Canada, and not London in the UK. But I thought, you know what? If we get a yes, then we're going. So I just carried on going through the process. It's a university project. So when my interview was like 2 20-year-olds, so I put my A game on for these 20-year-olds, like, I'm this. And I told them the story of, the car accident, the change. And then obviously what did actually happen was that the year that I should have been in a wheelchair at 55, I did a really big bike ride in India. And that was the same year. So I cycled 370 kilometers in India. So that was my talk. And their theme was Rising Phoenix. So it's just everything fitted together. So the process is the interview, then they pitch you to the panel. Then if you're happy, you work with them, you do your speech, and you work with them. They're really, really supportive. So I don't know if it was luck or judgment or just my talk, but I got a yes. And so I was, okay, we're going to Canada. Because I just believe I wanted the yes. But I heard on average that it takes 86 attempts to get a TED. So I'm like, I'm not waiting another 85 times to get one that's around the corner. I'm going for this one.
Debbie's TEDx talk was not her first time as a speaker. Debbie shares how she became an international speaker.
What happened is I said to you I was working with a coach a while back, and I'd gone back to him after I trained with him and then went away and did something completely different. And then I had some stuff in property that I was doing that just went terribly wrong when I went back. And he's like, come and work with me and I'll make you a speaker. So the very first time that I worked with him, a couple of weeks later, I was in a room with 45 people. We taught them social media for 3 days. And there was somebody there that was an NLP master and someone else that has 3 business degrees. And he asked me if I wanted to speak. And I said, no one's wants. And in my head, I'm like, who's going to listen to Debbie from Swindon? I've got the 3 degrees of Mr. NLP there. And it intimidated me. So I turned him down. He was like, are you sure? And I said, no. And I went home on the train and I crucified myself for saying no. I was like, the one opportunity with the one person who's going to make a speaker, and you've just been an idiot and said no. So then I crafted a speech that I could use in those circumstances about the business and about the coaching and how I managed to get a really good contract off the back of some of the coaching, and then stayed on tour for a couple of years. So I spoke about his business, but I didn't ever speak about me. And I would get up and I wouldn't be able to breathe and I would go red. And I would just be like, think that I was going to fall over by the time I finished doing my little bit of speaking because I was just so nervous. And then about 4 months after that, we went to an event and there was 600 people in the room. And he was like, do you want to speak? And I was like, give me the microphone. So, but at the same time, that same person told me the story that I did for my TED was boring. So I did talk about it once and he was like, that's boring, not interested. So I had no confidence to speak until I met another person, a spiritual coach, and I'm not particularly spiritual. I'm very woo curious, but I'm not particularly woo. So I would love to know all about it, but it's not me. And she said, go and talk about it. Other people will be helped by the fact that you didn't give up, that, there's another way to do things. It isn't necessarily all bad. And somebody who thinks there's no chink of light or no magic or no uplift for them might listen to your story and think, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. So I talked about it once. Then I was interviewed on local radio about it and decided to do some fundraising for the local radio for the bike ride. And it went out on Instagram, and one of my friends who'd had breast cancer messaged me and said, "Hey Deb, I just listened to your story, and I realised that after my breast cancer, that I can't remember it word for word, right? So after my breast cancer, I don't know why I felt ill all the time and tired. I suddenly realised that I don't know if the surgeon told me or if I told me or society told me, but I was making myself feel ill because I expected it to be that way. That's what people predicted." So she said, "I just decided that that's not going to happen to me. And now I feel amazing. It's changed my life." And I was like, had a little tear, I've got to be honest, because I didn't expect it. I didn't expect that at all. It was a real, wow. If that's, I told it once, and that's made that difference to that one person. She changed her mentality about how she could feel. And she's like, "I'm having an amazing life. Thank you." I was like, maybe do you need to talk about it a little bit more? Maybe there is a little bit more power, because I believe that I just did what anybody else would do. I don't believe that anybody else would do anything different. I just did what I needed to do. I'm no mentor, really. I just did what I felt was right to do in the moment as such. So, and then since I've told people, then I've more stories, lots of stories where people have said, do you know what, if you can do it, I can do it. If Debbie from Swindon can do it, then anybody can do it. And people have decided that they're going to talk more, or they've got a story that they've put off that they don't want to do. And it just does have a little bit of a catalyst effect for people to say, do you know what, I can do this, you can do it. And that's all I want. I want people to say, if I can do it, I'm just a normal person. I'm just a normal person. And if I can do it, then you can do it. And if I have to give somebody a hand up, if there's someone on the floor and I have to reach out and give them that hand up, then I'll be that hand up.
Debbie shared some advice for people who wish to become a public speaker.
Stop being the best kept secret, I would say. So there's 3 things that you need to do. One is become more visible. Go and talk about your story. Go and do a blog. If you're not able to turn that camera around and talk, then go on Zoom and go on a podcast. Talk about it on a podcast, because it's easy for visibility. Make sure that every platform that you're on, you're using. So one piece of material. I'm not a big believer on, and all the social media gurus might come out and say this, is like, I'm a believer of imperfect action. So if you've got one video or one post, it might not be perfect for all 4 platforms, say TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It might not be perfect for all of them, but it's better to have something than nothing. So go and get your presence out. Go and talk to people about what it is that you want to speak about. What problem do you solve? How can you help a person? And what will happen is, the first time you talk will be the worst time you talk. The second time will be the second worst time. You are going to go red. You are going to get out of breath. You are going to kick yourself off and say, "Oh, I forgot half my words." I still forgot half the words for the TED, but do you know what? The one thing I did know is it was my life story. So if I made a mistake, I was the only person who knew. As long as it flowed, as long as I got some laughs, as long as I got a round of applause, that's what mattered. Imperfect action is what they need to do.
Habits of Successful People is Debbie Bryan's latest book. She shares about the book and why she wrote it.
So this is about people in history that have been successful, and some of the traits that they've got. Again, they were normal people. They're not, because of history, they're not seen and perceived as normal people, but everyone's just a human being, So this was an analysis of just going in and looking and saying, what about them made them successful? What was their thing that they really needed to do, or the way that they decided that they were going to think differently? And I think some of the times being successful is about thinking differently. You get a situation where something goes wrong, and there's one type of person that's going to sit down and they're going to give up, and there's another person who is going to go, okay, so that didn't work out. What do I need to do differently? I'm not a big believer in the word no. I think that no means you're asking the wrong person or you're trying it the wrong way, and that all you need to do is just go and find another way. Because had I accepted the word no, when that surgeon said to me, "You're going to have this and your leg's not going to work," what then? I have 13 years of mobility because I don't believe in taking that answer, that no answer, for myself, really. I don't even know that you could negotiate with a surgeon, but I did in whatever way. But it was very much about, that's not the right answer. Let's go and try something different. So that's what this book is about people who've had that philosophy of going, do you know what, when times get hard, let's find another way. Let's find another way. Because if you believe in what you're doing, and I always believe that there's a yes. So if the person in front of me is telling me no, then the chances are that's not the right person in the situation. I need to go and find who's got the yes. It's not that I disregard that person's no. Their no is their no. So, there's nothing like intrusive. It is just a case of that no is their answer. But if there's a yes, I need to go and find the person who's got a yes. They say you need to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. It's a similar type thing.
Debbie Bryan experienced a different publishing process compared to others. She shared her process with us.
Oh, this is a terrible answer, but actually I went to Fiverr for that one. I got a publisher off of Fiverr. When I published that, it was when they were talking about KDP, making money in your sleep. You'll wake up and there's all this money in your bank. It's not kind of how it works, really. The money just goes into the Fiverr person's bank, not into yours. But I saw that and then found somebody on Fiverr that helped me to help me with what I should talk about. I think I want to do something completely different. He's like, no, this is much more popular. This is a bestseller. He took me through the process of writing it. I'm an awful writer. I have to speak. So I have to speak and then get it transcribed because I'm quite fast, as you can hear, and I can't write as fast as I can think. So I get really frustrated. When I was doing my NLP Masters and I had to do an essay, I had a 3-month extension. They would give me another extension, and I still am literally hoovering the bottom of the fridge, the salad drawer. I'm thinking that's more important than doing the essay because I can procrastinate my way out of writing. Show me a stage and go, Deb, just go up there on the stage. Here's the microphone, improvise all day long. Ask me to write that speech before is really difficult. So there's a real learning process in that book because it's not something that's natural to me. And so he was really, really helpful and took me through that process. I've since last year done a co-author book with James Redfield and Ken Honda, and that's just a chapter. So that was a little bit more manageable. But again, I had to speak it and then transcribe it. I couldn't actually, it's just my style. And I have a little bit of a secret, another one coming out on resilience. So women in resilience, that's coming out. I'm not quite sure when, actually, in the next couple of weeks. And the difference in that process so that first co-author one to this one is this was much better written, much better journeying and storytelling because I taught myself how to do storytelling when I'm speaking.
Lastly, Debbie shares advice to those who may feel stuck in any area of their life.
So the first thing I would say is there's never a no. Even if you feel like giving up, just take yourself off, go and do some deep breathing, stop it, interrupt your thoughts. So I, in the last couple of years, learned to meditate, just 10 minutes of breathing. It's not really meditation, 10 minutes of breathing, just to stop the interrupt in my brain from going down that spiral where you can't see the positive. So after that, I can sit there and go, what's the actual problem? What's my perceived problem? What's the actual problem? And what are the solutions that I can do? Because there's always a solution, always. Even if you're in dire financial straits, and I've coached people in this situation, even if it's money and the obstacle is too big, there's always a solution. Second thing is go and talk to somebody. Go and find somebody who can help you, whether they be a friend, a family member, a mentor, a coach, local authority, like a citizen advice bureau, somebody to talk to, because your problem is so big inside your head that you need to kind of brain dump it out onto something else. And if you have nobody to talk to, then brain dump it out onto a piece of paper and just take it out and have a look at it and go, is it as massive as I think? And the third thing is, I think just never give up, really. I could have given up on that first day and I wouldn't have had the 13 years of physicality that I've had. I wouldn't have been able to cycle in India. You can't. My next operation is I will end up with a straight leg that won't bend. So what they offered me in the beginning, my next operation is that. And I'm 56 years old. I'm 57 this year. And I'm not accepting that that is the only answer that I've got. So you have to just think out the box. Don't even think out the box, right? Smash the box up, throw it over your shoulder, and have a look and see what it's like without the parameters, because there is always a solution.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Ready Writer. Thank you to our guest Debbie Bryan for sharing her journey with us. Also thank you to you, the audience, for taking the time to view this episode. This has been The Ready Writer.